welcome back to the Blossom Crochet channel. Now in this crochet tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make this absolutely beautiful stitch, this beautiful blanket. Now this is one that ever since I uploaded my original granny merge blanket pattern, I've had probably hundreds of requests as to how to make it into a rectangle, because obviously some people much prefer a rectangular blanket than a square one. So here we have it. This is the rectangular granny merge pattern. So I've worked up quite a few rounds of it in this yarn. However, I will be using a plain yarn to show you for the tutorial. But yeah, it's the one that you've been waiting for, I guess. I'm sorry that it did take so long, but yeah, we're here and it is ready and it is beautiful. So you can see it lies lovely and flat, and it's just a really beautiful and special design, really. It's really quite striking. As you can see, it changes on each side and it also changes after a few rounds as well. So I've been doing 4 rounds of each stitch before I switch. However, in the tutorial I will only be doing 2 rounds before I switch, purely so that I can show you the stitches and the changes in a much quicker way. But you can change the rounds as often as you want. You could do it every round, you could do it every 4 like I've done, you can do it every 2, every 6. It really doesn't matter, it's totally up to you. And then you can just build it until your project is the size that you want it to be. Okay, so we're starting with our slip knot on our hook. And I'm going to do a chain of 18, which is what I started with in that example blanket that I just showed you. You can do shorter or longer starting chains, it's up to you. You just need to do it in a multiple of 3, but I will be doing 18, which I find is just a really good size for a rectangular blanket. So yarn over and pull through. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for the entirety of this project we're going to be using UK treble crochets. So in the US, please remember these are your double crochets. So if you're used to US terminology, then every time you hear me say treble, just think double. So into the 6th chain from the hook, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is our 6th, we're going to put a granny cluster. So a granny cluster is just a group of 3 trebles all in the same stitch. So yarn over into that 6th stitch, yarn over and pull up, and you'll have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the second 2. I'll show you a treble one more time, but after that we're just going to crack on. So yarn over, back into that same chain, yarn over and pull up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we want one more treble in this chain, like so. So that is your first granny cluster, and then we've got 5 skipped stitches. So then you want to skip 2 chains and work a granny cluster into the 3rd. So you want your 3 trebles all in that same chain, and then again skip 2 and granny cluster. And you're going to repeat that to the end of your chain. So you should be able to skip 2 and then cluster in that very final chain. And then we want to finish the row in the same way that we started the row. So you remember we've got these 5 skipped stitches. So you want to chain 5, and then you're going to slip stitch into that final chain where you've just worked your other stitches. So insert your hook, yarn over and pull up, and then you'll pull that loop through the loop on your hook. Okay, so it will naturally turn at this point so that you've got the bottom of your stitches. So at this point we want to slip stitch into this chain space just here. So we're going to ignore the bottom of the stitch here and we're going to slip stitch into this space. Okay, so now you want to chain 2, and that is going to count as your first treble. You then want to put another treble into that chain space, and then you'll put a treble into the bottom of where these other stitches are. And then into this next chain space you're going to put 3 trebles. So into the space that you've got between your clusters you will put 3 trebles. And then 1 treble into the base where you've got your cluster. And then again 3 trebles into the chain space. 1, 2, and 3. And then again 1 into the base. So I'm just going to stick with you because we're almost at the other end. And then again 3 into the next. And then 1 into the base of that stitch. Okay, so we're now at the funny little skipped chains, and into here we're going to create our first corner. So you want to put 2 trebles, because this is going to be obviously one of our solid granny square sides at this point. So when you've worked along a solid granny square edge, you will only put 2 trebles at the end of your row. And then you want to chain 2 for a corner. And now we're going to switch on this side very briefly to a granny cluster. So you want to put 3 trebles now into this same space, because this is the start of our other side of our rectangle. So we've got 3 trebles in that space now as well. We now want to create another corner, so chain 2, and then we're turning and we want to work a solid granny square edge down this side. So we are mirroring what we've got on this edge here. So you want to start with your 2 trebles in that same space. So you've got a lot of stitches worked into that chain 5 space. So you've got 2 corners, and now we're going to work along this row. So we want to put a treble into the top of every single stitch all the way along. You might need to pull your work slightly so that you don't miss this first stitch. You want to make sure you're working into the top of this first treble, make sure you don't miss it. And go through the whole of the stitch each time, making sure to catch the little V. So into the top of every single stitch you will put a treble. Okay, so we're now at our funny little chain space again, and we want to do 2 trebles to finish off our solid side. So 1 and 2. And at this point it is definitely worth checking that you have got 19 stitches along this top edge, including that first 2 that you did in the corner space. Now obviously you won't have 19 stitches if you've done a different starting chain, but if you started with the 18 chains like I did, you should at this point have 19 trebles on your solid edge. Okay, so we want to create a new corner now, so chain 2, and then into this chain space you will put the granny cluster. So 1, 2, and 3. New corner space, chain 2, and then back into this space again you're going to put 2 trebles, because we started part way along our row. So at this point we've only got 17 trebles along the bottom edge. So we need to make it the same with our 19. So we want 2 trebles in this space. So 1 and 2. And then you're just going to close with a slip stitch to the top of that first chain 2 that we did. So close with a slip stitch. So insert your hook and then yarn over and pull through both. So it doesn't look like much at the moment, but it will do once we work up a few more rounds. So at this point, because I like to always work from a corner, I'm actually going to fasten off at this point. I'm going to chain 1, I'm going to snip off and just pull that out and tighten up. And then I'm just going to flip my work over and I'm just going to choose a corner space to start, and you can choose literally any corner space to start this next row from. So I've got a slip knot on my hook and I've just done a yarn over, and I'm just going to hold with my finger, inserting into one of my corner spaces, and then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that just gives us our first treble, and then I'm going to do another treble into that corner space. So I'm now going to do my second round, and then I'm going to change it up. So like I say, on the example blanket I showed you at the beginning, I did 4 rounds before I changed, but just for speed for the tutorial I'm going to change after 2 rounds, just so that you can get through the tutorial a little bit quicker. So at this point we're doing the exact same thing. So we've got our 2 trebles in our corner space, so now we're ready to work along our long edge. So we're going to be putting 1 treble into the top of each stitch all the way along, so nice and simple, because we're going to do 2 rounds the same and then switch, and then do another 2 rounds, switch back again. So 1 treble into every single stitch, and I will meet you at your corner. Okay, so always make sure you're working into that very last treble, and then because we're on the solid edge we want 2 trebles into this chain 2 corner space. Chain 2 for your new corner, and then we're on our granny cluster sides. So into this chain 2 space on a granny cluster side we're going to now put a granny cluster, so 3 trebles into that corner chain 2 space. So 1, 2 and 3. You're going to chain 1 to skip across this cluster, and then into your other corner you're going to go straight in with a cluster, so 3 trebles. Okay, so chain 2 for your new corner space, so that is your granny cluster side, and then we're switching back to solid granny side, so 2 trebles in your corner space. Like I say, it's always different when you swap from your solid to your clusters, and then 1 treble into each of the trebles along onto your other corner space. Always be careful when you're working over where we fastened off, make sure you don't add any stitches that you don't need, and always count your rounds if you're not sure. Okay, so 2 trebles in this corner space to finish off our solid side, chain 2, and then we're flicking to our granny cluster, so 3 trebles in that chain space. Chain 1, and then we need to finish off where we started from, so we need to do our granny cluster in that final space to finish off this corner. Make sure you do your final chain 2 and then slip stitch to the top of that first stitch of the round. Okay, so at this point you should have a more defined rectangle than you did at the end of your last round, and we're going to turn and we're going to slip stitch back into this corner space. So slip stitch back in, you're going to chain 2, which will count as your first treble. Now if you're doing 4 rounds before you change like I did in that example blanket, then you will go straight in with a granny cluster, chain 1, granny cluster, chain 1, granny cluster, and then your solid side, and you will repeat that last round as many times as you want before you change. However, once you are at the point where you want to change from solid to granny cluster or granny cluster to solid, then this is where we will do that. So we're going to be changing this from a granny cluster side to a solid side. So we've done the chain 2, which counts as our first treble, and we want 1 more treble in that space. You're then going to put 1 treble into the top of the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2 and 3. You want a treble in the chain 1 space in between your granny clusters, and then again 1 treble into each stitch of your cluster. So you'll repeat that all the way to your corner, so 1 treble into each treble and 1 treble into each chain 1 space. So in your corner, because we're swapping to a solid, you want 2 trebles, chain 2, and then we're going to swap from a solid side now to a granny cluster. So into your corner chain 2 space you will put your cluster, so your 3 trebles all in that space. Chain 1, and then you're going to skip 3 trebles, so you're going to skip 1, 2 and 3, and into the 4th you will put your new cluster, so you will do your 3 trebles all in that same stitch. Chain 1, skip 3, 1, 2 and 3, and cluster into the 4th, and again you will repeat that to your corner space. So again you're going to be skipping your final 3 trebles, and into your corner space you will finish with a granny cluster. Chain 2 for your new corner space, and then again we're flipping from a traditional granny side to a solid. So you want to start your row with 2 trebles. So that is the most important thing to remember really, is that your corners they'll be uneven. One side will have 3, one side will have 2 and vice versa. So now 1 treble into the top of each treble, and 1 treble into your chain 1 space. And again you will work that all the way along to your corner. And then in your corner you'll have 2 trebles to finish off your solid side, chain 2, and then again we're switching from solid to granny clusters. So you'll start with a granny cluster in your corner chain space. Chain 1, and then you want to skip 3, 1, 2, 3, and cluster in the 4th. Chain 1, skip 3, cluster in the 4th. And I will meet you again one final time in your corner space. So now back where we started from, I'm going to skip my final 3 trebles and put my final granny cluster into the corner chain 2 space. So 1, 2, and 3, chain 2, and then I'm going to slip stitch to the top of that second chain. Sorry if you can hear the excitement from outside. It's the summer holidays, so kids are obviously out having some fun in the sun. So that is the end of that round. So now we are going to repeat that round. So you're going to turn and then slip stitch back into your corner space. Chain 2 to count for your first treble, and we're working back along our granny clusters, so you want 2 more trebles in that space to count for your first granny cluster. Chain 1, and then you're just going to work a normal granny all the way along. So into each chain 1 space you will put your new granny cluster. Chain 1, skip across. So again, you're just going to work that all the way around. So you will continue with your granny clusters, then you will switch to your solid, then you'll do your granny clusters and so on. And then I will meet you one final time where we will finish off this round, and I will just show you again how we will switch back. So as I say, it's still totally up to you how many rows you want to do before you switch between solid and clusters. It's totally up to you. So I'm almost back around. I've got one final treble here to work into, and then I'll just do my final 2 of the round in my corner chain 2 space. I'll then chain 2 to finish this off and slip stitch to the top of that first chain in the beginning of the round. So as I say, you might be doing more rounds than 2 before you change, but I will just remind you again now how you will change once you're ready. You will turn, slip stitch back to your chain 2 space, chain 2 to count as your first treble, and then when you're changing back, the most important thing for this project is remembering your corner spaces and how they will change depending what stitch you are doing along that side. So these were solid rounds, whereas now you'll be switching back to your traditional granny cluster round. So you will be doing 3 here, and then skip 3 stitches, work into the 4th, chain 1, skip 3, work your cluster into the 4th, and then you'll get to your corner, you will do a cluster, chain 2, and then you'll be switching to your solid. So you will do 2 trebles, and then 1 treble into the top of each stitch and 1 treble into your chain 1 space. So it's all about remembering how to do your corners and skipping the correct stitches. However, that is it for the tutorial part of this video. You should be able to rewind to get to points that you need to if you need any help with firming up, changing over or corners. But as I said, that is it for the tutorial. So I will just bring back this one that I've been working on, and after a while it will start to look something like this. So I really do hope that you've enjoyed this one, but I will see you again for another tutorial really soon. But thank you as always for watching, and bye for now.